tip.
Good afternoon. It is January 2nd, 2024. You're listening to a Little Column A, Little Column B, hosted by Will Limos and co-hosted by Zach Bishop. How are you doing today, buddy?
What's going on, Will? I started last week congratulating you on beating me in the Cozy Corner Fantasy Football League, and again I'm going to open with a congratulations to you on winning the championship. How does it feel to get the trophy back at your place? You are the champion.
The trophy is such a long-lost feature of this league. It was the only reason I cared at the beginning, because it was the only league that actually had a trophy, but it has been long forgotten, and I think it either needs some sort of revival or some sort of replacement, because I don't think it holds the stature it once did. So I'm, I guess, confused because, for one, I'm unaware of its current location, and that's already adding to the fact that I'm saying I don't know if this is cared about as much. And I'm not sure if I should just start from scratch and make a new one, because this is my third championship. I did win 2 leagues, 2 out of 4, and I finished second in a third league, and I placed third in another league as well. So, that's a pretty successful year. I placed in everything. We're positive money in every league, and that's all you could really ask for. But it's like none of it matters. The second it ends, it's like nothing from the past year is going to help you going forward. So as much as it is a victory in a exhausting season that finally gets to end in victory, it's on to the next season, and none of this matters anymore.
Who are you? Are you literally Nick Saban over here? Oh well, no. Now we're behind. I'm way behind on prep for next year. You just won a couple days ago. Live in the moment. At least, figure out some silly ways you're going to spend your winning. You said you're up in all the leagues. I mean, that is really tough to do. I was nowhere near doing that well. Even just a couple leagues, to be able to win 2 championships, that's an incredible year.
The joy in winning is that the stress is gone every Sunday for a little bit. The Patriots suck. They're out. That's over. And that it is entirely Boston Celtics season, and that is the only priority I will have. But the stress of having 4 leagues and essentially making 3 championships and possibly losing all of them was a real reality of the weekend, and it didn't go that way. But I'm just glad that I'm relieved that just is over, because I'd already kind of hyped it up and being like, and I was a favorite, I'd say, in just about all of them. So I actually kind of blew one of them, if we're really being honest here. I had in the league I lost in the championship. I hadn't lost since week 5, so this is a very new feeling. All right, this is a 2024 feeling I have not had in quite some time. So that was a shock, but it's fine. It's over. None of it matters. I won the money, and we're on to the next season. It doesn't matter.
You say none of it matters. I think it does matter, and I think that you are going to take things from this year into next year. I think it's more the negative things, but you have that running list of guys that are on your do not draft list that if you did not play this year, you would not have those guys on that for next year. So I do think that the years do roll over, whether it's positive or negative.
It's the only list in my life that gets longer. It never gets shorter. It's the only list.
They have to retire.
No, they stay on forever. All right, I'm not even watching you in the broadcast after. Like, you're on a list. You're off.
You're done.
You're out. All right, and this year's edition, I have no shame in saying that Gabe Davis will never ever be remotely close to my fantasy team ever again, and I will never support the Atlanta Falcons I don't think I got 1 pick right out of all 17 games, and we got 1 more to go, and I can tell you right now, I'm not looking forward to it, because they have been my kryptonite for the entire season, and we will get to our picks in a little bit. We have a little bit more urgent college playoffs going on just last night, which a great games. I'll give you that. They were solid games in Alabama.
Exciting.
Alabama versus Michigan, and Texas versus Washington. When it's all said and done, I think we did get some decent teams here. I thought they looked rusty, though. Like, I don't know why this game takes place so far after the season. I thought both teams looked like this was a preseason game and that they hadn't played in weeks. The reality is they hadn't. And the muff punts, the turnovers, the mistakes that you would never see a well-coached, well-schooled high school team make was happening to arguably the top 4 teams in the country regularly. There was a lot of mistakes last night. I really know the explanation behind it.
There was an interception on the first offensive play. I mean, it just happened the guy was out of bounds, but I mean, that start, it was not good. It was definitely sloppy football, especially in that first game. It was really that fourth quarter really made things exciting. But I would definitely go on that there was more drama and excitement more than these were well played football games.
Well, why are we pushing the game so far back? Because I thought it really damaged the product. And look, I'm not the biggest college football fan, so I can't really make the biggest deal out of all this because this is basically the way it's always been. But it did look like we spend so much time trying to narrow this down into 4 teams, and then it's like we don't even care what 4 teams show up 5 weeks down the road. Like it's too far down the road, and I don't know how you fix it or what you do about it. And now that we're going to add even more teams, this is probably even farther down the road. I thought it damaged the product. I don't know if there's an explanation you have of why it is played so far after, or if this is not really a concern of anyone. Like, am I the only one who cares about this?
There's actually a few different reasons. One of the reasons is yesterday that first game was the Rose Bowl. You played at the Rose Bowl. It was when this was invented was I think like 1902. Way back in the day. It was part of the Rose Bowl parade and the Rose Festival, and that was always held on New Year's Day. So it's just tradition that Rose Bowl is on New Year's Day, so that continues. As well as the season pretty much ends right around Thanksgiving, like just after Thanksgiving normally is when the conference championships are. Immediately after that, the next 2 weeks are finals for colleges. You forget. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. These guys are in school, and so the tradition of these are student athletes, despite what people may think they've turned into at this point. So now you go those 2 weeks. Well, now you're mid to later December. Well, now you have Christmas in the way, and then it's only more recently with the influx of money. But it used to be, all right, well, we're going to be traveling, and these teams, you're not necessarily traveling to your region. You're going far away, so just setting up all right, how are we going to get a whole football team? Like, how are we going to fly? So not as big of an issue now with private planes and, like I said, with all of the money. But I think it's one of those things that it fits with the narrative. They come out, it was sloppy. It's, look at the rust. But if they had played well, it's, oh, well, look, they had a month to prepare. They had, they're all getting healthy. So if you had some guys that were, banged up, now these guys are at least at full strength. They're as close to full strength as you can be. It's not like you played last week and you've been playing a full season. You got some downtime, but I don't think it necessarily had to do so much with, hey, these guys had over a month. They always have this long. The coaches, Nick Saban's been in this position a lot. He knows. Similar, you hear from Tom Brady. After he did the first Super Bowl, he was lucky enough to be able to go back to subsequent and knowing that halftime is extra long. You have to do different things. I'm sure Saban knows. You have to do different things than you would normally do if it was just 1 week or if you had a bye week during practice. But I think, I would just chalk this up more to these are college kids. We've been watching NFL. NFL is professional. They're paid. They're the elite of the elite college ones. And so, the play was a little bit subpar, but it did not take away from my enjoyment of it.
Well, they didn't really hold back on what they were giving us in this game. It was 2 major schools, and I suppose a somewhat controversial team in Alabama getting in. We can actually talk about some of the games that took place before a miserable day of bowl games prior to the actual playoffs. Was it Florida State? Not. They really mailed it in, huh? They after all the hoopla and the talk. What was there to see? The game was over the second I checked the score. It was like 45-7, like the whole game.
So I didn't realize on Saturday what time that game was going on, but I was just messing around, and then was like, oh yeah, let me check the scores, and I look and I saw it was afternoon. I saw 42-3, and just said, wow, that is a rough one for Florida State. Coming in, it was, hey, if they win this, they could have a legitimate argument that they're the national championship didn't lose, and just boy did that get thrown back in their face. Then it took me a second look to see that wasn't the final score. That was the halftime score. The final score was 63-3. And now the Florida State contingent is arguing, saying, oh, well, once we weren't in the real playoffs, it was just a bowl game. We had a lot more people opt out. So, this is totally different. Okay, if it was close and you took Georgia down to the wire, you can use that excuse. You get beat by 60 points? 60! No excuse. so glad that we didn't have them in the semifinals, where we had two close games. One of them went into overtime. I saw a stat, it was something like in the first 8 years that we did this, there were only 3 games within one score. And then like the past few years, it's been closer. We've had some real duds. So Washington looked like they were going to take it away, and then things got real hairy down the stretch. But both of those games, I was locked in. It was a lot of fun, and I think it's only going to get better next year with the expansion, where maybe in the earlier rounds there are some blowouts, but the better teams, the teams that are playing better in December/January, whenever they're going to be, I think we're going to have some really good games.
I was fine with it. It was all right. I think there's a little bit more controversy and drama of a game to actually talk about is the overtime game, and I suppose more specifically the final play that Alabama ran after 17 timeouts. I mean that
oh man,
was the longest gap ever. It was like, all right, so this is the last play of the game. Let's just put it on tomorrow because they're going to call timeout. They're going to go out and show their offense, and then the defense is going to call timeout, and then the defense went out and showed their defense, and then the offense called time. It was
I think it was 3 timeouts in a row.
A really long delay, of which I'm kind of been told like college football overtime is the greatest thing ever. It's quick. It's like immediate. And it was. It was like Alabama got the ball and they're already snapping the ball right after Michigan scored. And now we're at the goal line. We have all these crazy timeouts. It's 4th down. And I'm kind of thinking like this is going to be another trick play or just some sort of elaborate something because, like I said, the gamesmanship of the timeout game went back and forth. So I was very underwhelmed when it ended up just being a quarterback draw, which I don't know if that was scripted. I don't know if that was a choice by the player, and I'm not going to fault really anyone. You know, you're out there and you see an opportunity on the defense to maybe get in, go for it. But I do feel like you are limiting your opportunities with a ballsy draw just like that, and I think that was a mistake. Do you wish they did something else? I mean, I'm not saying I wanted a fade route, but maybe a play action where he rolls out to the side or something where you just get some movement, not just like maybe they won't be looking kind of sneak. Like this was like a backdoor cut on a game-winning drive here that just wasn't the window to do that. Like this is something you try to sneak by in like the second half or in the second quarter, not the end of the game. I would have done it again, and I'm not even sure if that's the original play they did draw up, but I was a little bummed out on the execution of that. I just had higher expectation. Do you think there should have been something else, or this is really going to boil down to, as you always say, that they're college kids and you can't prepare for that situation? Like the intensity of this was, you couldn't have any more weight on your shoulders.
Well, it's not the players to come up with the play. You know, they have to execute the play. The snap was low, but I think even if the snap was perfect, it wasn't 4th and inches. I mean, there were still some yards that needed to be gained. So to direct snap it right to the quarterback and then have him just run into the back of his line, I didn't like that at all on a play that you need a touchdown. I'm with you. Some sort of a rollout where you have the option of you can run it in, you can throw it. I'm fine with it not being a trick play. It's like biggest play of the year. You know, run something really good, and I just can't imagine that direct snap dive was the best option. Like I said, even if the snap had been successful, Alabama just hung in this game. Or I feel like they were hanging around in the game, but then they were leading, and then they really should have put it away. But then their quarterback fumbles, and then Michigan was just kind of hanging around, and then was able to tie it up down the stretch. But I really thought we were going to get a handful of overtimes. I thought both teams were going to be able to score, and then it was going to come down to like the going for twos later on. I definitely didn't think it would end just in the first overtime. I thought for sure, you know, Michigan scores. It's like Alabama's for sure going to score, and they got down to the goal line so quickly. And then, like you said, just all of the timeouts, and just I think that just adds to it of just.
It maximized
3 timeouts. You had 20 minutes, and this was because
it maximized the disappointment. Like it couldn't have added up.
You have 30 seconds to a play ends before the next one has to go. So, you know, the coach has to talk to the offense coordinator. I don't know exactly who's calling the plays on these teams. So there's a lot of communication. You got to get the play into the quarterback and get it to the players. There's a lot of communication that has to happen that you don't necessarily realize at home, but they had so much time to figure this out. And I don't know, maybe they just overthought themselves maybe they came out, had more dynamic play, saw what the defense was put out there, and thought, oh, yep, they're expecting us to roll out, so their middle is real weak. But I don't know. I didn't like it.
Well, that was, I'd say, the only game with some actual drama. There's a little, I'd say, pressure situation on Washington, Texas, sort of late in the game, but overall, Washington, I just thought looked a little bit more prepared and came out a little bit sharper. And I actually think out of all the teams, I think out of
Penix, he just throws absolute dimes. He would throw it up, and they'd be deep routes. So like you can't see the wide receiver or the cornerback until the ball starts coming down, and then it's just right in the breadbasket for the wide receivers. I was very impressed with him throwing the ball. It was just fun to watch.
I kind of got to agree with you. And with that kind of going forward, are you favoring Washington over Michigan? Because I just felt like I actually still think Michigan is the best team in the country, but the amount of unforced errors that they were able to just bail themselves out of that could have easily cost them the game at any point. You could just point to every single mistake that was just unforced errors, like muff punts and fumbles and turnovers, completely unnecessary stuff that shouldn't happen and likely won't happen in the next game. So I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I just, when you see a team that didn't have those sort of problems go forward, I think you got to kind of favor that team. But what are you feeling? You're a little bit more of a college football expert. Which team?
Well, that Washington took the lead in the second half, and we're up two possessions, and looked like, all right, they're gonna cruise with this. But it came down to the very end. They got very unfortunate when they were running out the clock and it looked like the game was over. I was actually surprised. I thought they were able to kneel it, but I guess with the timing, it was going to be like just off. And then on third down, they did not get a first down, but one of their players got hurt. So it stopped the clock. So it gave Texas a whole extra 30 seconds. So I think rather than having 20 seconds, 50 seconds, which is just a huge amount, a different amount of time. And Texas marched right down the field, and then they had two right almost on the not right on the goal line, but I think within 5 to 10 yards shots, and it was pretty close. I would have felt really bad for Washington because they were in the driver's seat, and just the way that happened with the clock management, where we'll talk about it for some of the NFL games, that this is the coach's fault, or this was not the coach's fault. This was just a guy got hurt, and it was just unfortunate. But I think that Michigan's got the best defense in the country, so I think that they will be able to stack up. They're a major program. They're not going to have any problem with that. Something to keep an eye on. Washington was one of the more penalized teams in the country. It didn't really come to bite them yesterday, but I'm wondering on Monday night if you're going against a team, you're getting pushed around a little bit. Does some of the bad habits kind of come out? But I think I'm still going to go with Michigan, even though I am wary. I do realize yesterday they were the underdog in the conference championship. They were the underdog, and they're still undefeated. So I think this is going to be a close game. I'm hoping for a real fun one next Monday.
Do you think Georgia would beat either of these teams?
I think they'd be right in the mix.
I don't know. Bama played a great game. I don't want to take anything away from them. I just think that punch of Georgia would be something to address for every one of these teams. I think they would have their hands full. But enough of the.
It's just so tricky because it's not basketball where there's lots of possessions, or in the NBA you have a series. It's just football. There's only so many possessions, and I mean we saw it. Alabama beats Georgia, but the week before nearly got beat by Auburn. Like Auburn probably had like a 90% chance to win, in the moment, but just like the way that it works. So it's just what Georgia team shows up, or which of these teams shows up. There's not a lot of possession, so one mistake here or there I think goes much further than it does in other sports.
I think Alabama's going to regret losing this game. I think when you look back at the fumbles, a missed field goal, just amount of gifted opportunities, and perhaps you could say that's the only reason they were in the game, but I thought Michigan could have won this game by 20 points if those things don't happen. And man, the longer Alabama just stuck around and then had a lead and then really put the pressure on. It just a missed opportunity, I think for them. And this was really a wasted opportunity for almost the whole season that you could almost argue didn't deserve and just kept going, just kept going. And then how far could they press their luck? It really got pretty close. So I give them a ton of credit. Saban, he's coming back next year. You got to watch.
He'll be back.
You watch it. He'll
be back.
This team's going to be better next year. I don't think anyone's truly grasping that yet. That this was a down year for Alabama. Like regardless of the outcome, this was an overall down year that played out really well for them.
Down year and lost in the semifinal in overtime. Like how many schools would be like the best moment in the history of the school?
It might be the best moment for Washington.
This is a down year for them.
Is this the best Washington football moment? Am I just naive to the history? Because I mean, we're talking about how this is a disappointing year for Alabama. Is this like one of the most exciting things that's ever happened to Washington? They're going to the finals.
It's very impressive, especially where the Pac-12 is done after this year, and they put a team. ACC couldn't even get a team in the Final Four, let alone to the championship. So, just interesting that there's a Pac-12 team in the championship, and next year the conference just will not even exist.
All right, last question to college football, and this is a little bit more of a personal question. Do you want to push the podcast again to Tuesday next week so that we can get this game in, or do you want to go back to the normal Monday schedule?
Ooh, what do you think? Should we do you think the game's going to be good? So we're going to want to do a recap of it?
I don't know. These games are so good that I feel like we kind of have to, but I also know how college, man, it's not all apples and oranges. You think you got two oranges, and it's like, no, that team's like way better, and you just can't find out until you see them play.
Yeah, you sit down like, oh, we're going to have a fun game, and the end of the first quarter is you got the Georgia-Florida State situation of this wasn't close at all.
So I'm hesitant that it may end up being like that, but I thought the games yesterday were very good. So I think I'm going to be pro Tuesday for the moment.
Yeah.
Until
otherwise. Let's do Tuesday.
All right. So that's gonna be our plan for college football next week. As for this week, we have our last week of NFL picks of a disastrous, horrendous predictions. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about football, apparently. Like this calculating it and keeping track of it all week, every week. I mean, I know I'm not going to beat you, but it's not like you had that much better of a year, or if there's anything you should really be bragging about either. But our last week, here we are. I don't know which of these games matter and which of them don't, because there's a variety of teams that have some crazy combination of still being, I guess, mathematically possible, but pretty much everyone's eliminated. I don't know who's really playing for anything this week, but we'll go through them.
The Bills. It's wild. They could be the second seed. They could not make the playoffs.
We'll get to them. For now, we're going to kick it off on Saturday. No Thursday games.
Well, hold on. I want to push back a little bit, saying that I didn't have a very good year. I'm in the 90.4 percentile. That's an A-. That's not too bad. It wasn't an A+, but that's an A. I just want to push back a little bit that I had some terrible season. I started off terribly, but I was able to turn it around at least a little bit and salvage it.
We could be better. All right, we could win our own group for one.
Well, that would be nice.
So like you're handing out yourself an A-. There's an A+ in our own group. We only had 4 people in the whole group. There isn't like the world or the field that you're competing with. You couldn't even beat someone in your own group. So, go ahead, pat yourself on the back for a nice second place in beating me.
It's a podcast. It's just us head to head. That's the most important. Everything else is just that's just bonus.
Yes, you're so above average that you couldn't even be above average of our own little group. Like that doesn't whatever. Go ahead. I'll play the applause on you. I think I have the effect somewhere. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong button. Wrong button.
I'm just pushing back saying that I had a terrible year. I don't think I had a terrible year.
Oh, all right. Well, let's just get through this week then so you can, really kick off a real solid year. Stay consistent.
I'm looking to, get this, I want to start a winning culture, and then I can week 1 next year, I'll be ready to go. I'll be, All
right. Well, we got no Saturday games or no Thursday games. We're kicking off on Saturday now. So this is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore having an incredible win against Miami, of which I think Lamar has now locked up the MVP conversation. I just don't think you have much of an argument for anyone else. He was great Pittsburgh was also victorious with Mason Rudolph having an incredible showing, of which you just scratch your head of wondering why this guy wasn't running this offense the entire year. I mean, we talked about, I don't know how this team was over 500. I don't know why this team wasn't better than this now at this point. I mean, based entirely on just what I saw last week. Like, why was this a mistake? Like, should we be more critical of this, of going through Trubinsky and Pickett or Pickens or which one, whoever's the quarterback one? And I think it's really unexplainable. Either way, Baltimore's going to take care of business this week if they want to. I don't know if they necessarily need to, but I have no confidence in Pittsburgh. I just think that they've made a lot of mistakes all year. I have no idea how they have 9 wins, and I can't see them getting to 10. Who you got?
See, you really needed to crunch the numbers ahead of time and do your research this week. This week's a goofy week. Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win because the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to fight to see if they can get into the playoffs. The Ravens, even if they lose, they have the 1 seed all locked up. So I don't think Lamar's playing. Or I'm pretty positive Lamar's not playing. I don't think any of the starters are going to be playing. So I think that the Steelers ones can beat the Ravens backups, and they're going to take a nice little break. Get their bye week. They're not going to play for a few weeks, get healthy, and then they'll be ready to go. But boy, past 2 weeks, Ravens games have looked at, ooh, this is going to be a juicy one. This will be a fun one. And they have just absolutely put the smack down. For whatever reason, the NFL said, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to put double-digit games at 1 o'clock, and we're going to hide this one. I thought this was going to be like the premier game. This was going to be all over Red Zone. I mean, it was all over Red Zone. There's a lot of points. But, boy, that was not competitive at all.
I'll take the B squad over Pittsburgh's A squad. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. All those mistakes, they're going to come back. All right, next game, Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Another funny one. These are 2 9-7 teams. They both somehow won last week, and I think have some sort of chance of making the playoffs still, right? I don't know the math between all of them, but
yeah. So this is actually winning. This is a win and get in situation.
I think Indianapolis.
So
is
whichever
the better
team, whichever team wins is in the playoffs, and whichever team loses has no chance to be in the playoffs.
I think Indianapolis is just a better team. I want Houston to win, and I think it'd be far more fun to see them advance. But they've had a lot of opportunities, and they've taken care of business where they can. CJ came back last week; he'll be better this week. But I just think I have a little bit more faith in Indianapolis, despite the struggles really of both these teams offensively. Jonathan Taylor's healthy. I think for now, I'll let him ride it out. I'll take Indy. Who you got?
I'm going with the Texans. I liked what I saw out of C.J. Stroud. We talk every week, and we got these quarterbacks getting hurt, and we got all the old guys that were good have retired, except for Joe Flacco, who's coming back, and he looks awesome. And just we need some of these young guys to step up and be awesome. So as much as I like Minshew Mania, I mean, we've kind of seen it. We've seen as far as it can go. We don't know what C.J. Stroud's ceiling is. So I would like the Texans to win, and I would like them get C.J. some playoff experience, see what he's got.
It would be fun to see some actual quarterbacking in the playoffs. There are going to be some terrible teams. These are going to be some of the teams. Like, one of these teams is going to get in. There's going to be some of the worst playoff games of the year. Like, the teams that are going to get in on the bottom here are just so bad that this was the year to do a 4-team college playoff. They really missed on that. But all right. So you're going with them. We're 0 for 2. We're really going to shift it up this week, huh? This is going to be a real deciding last week of who gets blown out. Right.
Yeah.
Next game, Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. I mean, Detroit, this is really the main conversation of a whole life here, of just why are they in the situation they're in. I skipped a game, didn't I? Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's do that one first. Sorry, I'm out of order. Cleveland, Joe Flacco wins again and has a massive game against a defense that I was scared to play him against. And had I played him, I would have actually been successful in 3 fantasy football leagues if I just had the confidence to play him. Now, he does all this without Amari Cooper, who had the record-setting week the week before, and this is no problem. It's just Joe Cool out there with the deep ball, just slaying away. I don't know how far this could go, but I'm very much for this. All right, this is momentum that is just fun to be part of. And Cleveland, after going through all of the injuries they have the whole year, the fact that they are 11-5 and Joe Flacco's leading the way, I'm for this story.
Legitimately leading the way too.
I'm-
Not just, oh, he's the quarterback and he's just gone in there and it's been the skill position guys on the defense and, he's just, a warm body out there and we just know the name Joe Flacco. Like, no, he is legitimately tossing the rock all over the place and just dominating. I don't get it.
I got Cleveland. Who you got?
I'm going with the Bengals. Cleveland has nothing to play for. They are locked in into the playoffs. So I think that they will be rolling out their B squad. Joe Flacco's a million years old. No reason to play him. So I think the Bengals they'll be a little scrappy. They'll try to win. But talk about a disappointing season for the Bengals. I mean, obvious reasons, but not what they expected coming into the year. We as Patriots fans knew kind of what to expect, but you only get so many years with these great quarterbacks. And Joe Burrow could be a great quarterback, and you lost a year.
We're the ones really taking the loss here. He's far more fun to watch than some of the guys that are going to get in, and I actually think it's pretty miraculous that they are 8-8 with all the circumstances of that. I mean, Joe Burrow was hurt for basically the first 4 weeks of the year. And what were they? 0-4, 0-3.
It was bad.
It was
even
rough.
when he came back. Even when he came back, he was still. You could tell he wasn't right.
So to kind of right the ship and then get injured and then just crawl into the end where you're not even relevant is hard, because I think they really gave themselves a chance when I don't think they had much of one. So it is a disappointing overall year and is a loss for all of us, but I don't think it's a complete, like, this team will still be solid next year. Like, I have no doubt in it. I'd much rather bet on this team next year with Joe Burrow coming back than a lot of these other teams. All right,
Agreed. Very much so. Yep.
Next game, Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. I mentioned Detroit just doing some baffling decisions at the end here. The whole choice to go for two
boy.
to then get penalized, of which you could still kick the field goal, of then running a play that was so controversial that I'm still not even sure what was wrong and what was supposed to be right and what everyone is mad about. I'm just more mad at that the analytics or whatever knowledge. I don't even think the analytics agreed with it. Like, I just don't understand the balls of this team. And it was cool when it was at like the 2-yard line. It just wasn't smart. It just was a dumb play. It just wasn't smart. There's no tough guy mechanism in all of this that's going to convince me that this was the right choice. And I know we know what happened right now, and it's easy to say, yeah, hey, that didn't work because it failed. But this was just a risk that you didn't have to take on a. It just feel like their whole season is now shifted. That they blew a game off a really bonehead decision at the end that they controlled. Like, they weren't forced into any of this. I know they had some like outlier chance of getting a top seed, and that's kind of why they wanted to go for the win. But once you get the penalty, I don't understand why you don't just go into overtime and take your chances there. Like, are you that scared of this other team? Like, can you explain the 2-point conversion at all?
I got it the first time around, where it's a very ballsy play, and you really have to be confident as a coach, because even if you think it's the right decision, if you don't get it, you're gonna take more heat than if you get it right and it works, which is just unfortunate. I am a fan of, hey, if you get the opportunity and you think you're rolling and you got to play and you think I think we're better off doing this now than trying to take this into overtime. And they did. They had a super sneaky lineman play that I think was right out of like a Belichick playbook. It's like, all right, cool, but they didn't announce who was the eligible lineman properly. Now there's arguments depending on who you're a fan of, whether the lines messed up or if the refs messed up. But the refs make the rules or enforce the rules, so that got messed up. But yeah, then afterwards you get moved back, and then you decide you're gonna still try to go for it, and then you throw a play that I think even if the guy had caught it, he was short. So that was a bad play call or poorly executed play at the least. That just seemed like, I don't know. It's like a little kid that just is having a tantrum, and rather than gets offered an out, but is a little kid, so doesn't take the out and just goes, no, I'm gonna keep doing this. Like, why? You had the advantage before. You had the play you were gonna run. Now that you're back, just reassess. Okay, we'll kick it. We've been beating this team pretty good all day. We'll take them into overtime. It should be about. I think at least 50-50, where that 2-point, they say is about 50-50 initially, but then when you move back, it's got to be worse. So, yeah, it didn't make any sense. The Cowboys really lucked out because they had a chance to run it down to not 0, but very little time, and they decided to throw on 3rd down and give the Lions about 35 seconds and then play the super soft prevent defense to even allow them to score the touchdown in the first place. So they get that 2-point conversion, and this conversation is not about the Lions and what they were doing, and it's much more on Mike McCarthy and his clock management saying, what in the world are you doing?
Hold on. It wasn't just they threw on 3rd down. It was the play that they threw a Hail Mary on 3rd down towards the sideline. That was not a clock-killing play in any form of another. Like, it was the complete opposite of like, hey, let's just get a reception and stay in bounds. And, like, it wasn't a cross. It wasn't a curl. It was just a Hail Mary straight shot that
you didn't need.
Nobody needed. No, didn't need. You were in the driver's seat. You have chosen to give up the driver's seat by doing that. Like, you could have taken a knee and you would have been better off in this game.
I was say you would have been better off taking a sack for sure. I don't know why they wanted to get that aggressive.
Do we like the quirky lineman play at the end for the 2-point conversion? A play that nobody ever runs, and they only run under these rare situations, and then we fall into these arguments of like, well, he hasn't been a receiver all day, but he said he was eligible on this last play, and that's kind of how we're going to win. Like, do we like that? Is this thinking outside the box, or is this trying to cheat?
No, I like it. It's the way you set up the formation, and you just have to do it correctly. And the reason that normally it doesn't work is because when a lineman announces, it's not like this covert thing. Like, he goes over to the referee and whispers to him, like, I'm eligible. Don't tell anybody. He goes over to the referee, says, hey, I'm going to be, we are lining up in this formation on purpose, and I am the eligible receiver. So then the referee announces it to everybody. So then the defense knows, okay, we're going to have somebody make sure to keep an eye on him. You get a linebacker that's like, I'm going to keep an eye on him. So it doesn't happen what happened in the game, that there was confusion and he was wide open. But I like it as it's a form of a trick play. Yeah, but I like it as you gotta test things out once in a while.
This is your 2-point conversion play. You have all these offensive weapons. We pay all these offensive guys the money to be on offense, and we're gonna bring the guy who's gonna do this one play this one time. I don't know if I like putting all my eggs in that basket. It just.
What are you talking about? We ran this with Vrabel more than once and were successful.
Yeah, well, Vrabel.
Back in the day.
All right,
Vrabel was a defensive player too.
Vrabel also played fullback for us. Vrabel also did like direct snap, quarterback sneaks. Like, he did a bunch of quirky things.
But isn't that the same argument?
I just thought Vrabel was getting a little bit more use on the quirky plays than this guy I've never heard of, and this team using him instead of all the offensive weapons. Like, why not just take a shot to Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Gibbs, or Montgomery and Gibbs do something together? I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like if you have true offensive weapons, you should use them. Some of these other teams don't have them, and they might have been forced to do that play, and you have just opted to run with it. I
think it's you balance out the. Do you use your strongest abilities that is not going to surprise them at all, or are you trying to surprise them? And they went the surprise route. And yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Of, you got these weapons, use these weapons, and just, like you said, throw it to Laporta. He's really good, and that should work.
It also just seems like anyone on Madden wouldn't have made this decision. And the other thing is, there's a play that they ran. Like you said, they ran short. It feels like they just stuck with the same 2-point conversion play, and we're like, well, we'll just go like 3 more yards farther. It's like, no, that's not how the plays work. Like, this would have worked great from the 2-yard line, but
yeah, it was, even if he had caught it, he was gonna. It sure looked like he was short, and he was diving to the ground, so it wasn't even a possibility of catching it. And maybe make a defender miss. You just got to reach your arm out. Maybe you could just cross the plane. He was going to the ground, and yeah, best case is he catches it and then doesn't. He's still out of the end zone.
Confusing league, of which we invest so much into all of this, and you see guys crumble at the end of the games with some questionable decisions. But we'll see if that tantrum comes back again, because that was like, if he pulls this stuff off in the playoffs, I'm not saying this is a fireable offense. They're still a successful team. But I think we're going to start putting some reins on some guys for making some mistakes like this towards the end of the game. Like, this is a chance you didn't need to take. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Like, even if they got it, I feel like I would have still been like, that was stupid. Like, that wasn't smart.
Wait a minute. Weren't you pro 2-point conversion yesterday in the semifinal game?
Yes, I was.
So what was the different situation there versus what the Lions did?
Well, the Lions didn't have a kicker just miss. I mean, did you have 1,000% confidence in that kicker in Michigan?
No, I didn't.
Like, even if it being closer, even it being a standard extra point, I still felt like this would be the worst way ever to lose, and this offense can get a 2-point conversion. I believe this offense can do that. And I know it's probably a 50-50 call and all that, but right now that's how I feel about this kicker. Even if the numbers don't agree with me, I felt shaky about that kick, and it would have been just an awful way to end the game. And I was like, it'd be so much
the worst.
It was so much more exciting to go into overtime and get what we get, but it also would have been exciting to be like, I don't know what this kicker's got going on in his head right now, but like, that last kick was not close.
It wasn't even close.
It was a complete shank, and if you shank this and we lose on that, I'd rather put the ball in the hands of the players that have kind of gotten me here and give them a chance rather than be entirely reliant on a shaky kicker who was fine. He even made the extra point after. Like, it was fine. Like, it worked, but I was hesitant of that. I just didn't think the trend of the game just felt like Alabama had figured out Michigan to some degree, and I would have wanted to wrap up this game a lot sooner. I thought it made a lot more sense. All right, we gotta move on. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. I have no faith in Jacksonville. I don't know what they put out there last week. They go 26-0 against Carolina, and I still thought they played bad. Like, they won 26-0, and I still thought this team was terrible last week. I don't know what to expect out of Tennessee, but I feel like they can spoil a season in Jacksonville, and I think they're going to want to do that. So I'm going to go with Tennessee in the spoilers and just hope for the chaos, because I have not supported this Jacksonville team all year, and I'm not going to start now. Who you got?
We don't know who the Tennessee Titans quarterback is going to be. I think the Titans. I know they're already out of the playoffs, but they're just bad. They've been bad all year. I think the Jaguars, they still got to figure some stuff out. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is going to be back in time for this one, but I'm going to go with the Jaguars.
All right, next game, New York Giants at the New England Patriots. It is rumored, not accurately, but potentially, that this could be Belichick's last game. Are we buying into that? And if we are buying into that, don't we want to win? I don't know. I saw this team last week have 3-4 turnovers in the first quarter, and yet somehow have a chance, like a legitimate chance, at beating the Buffalo Bills last week.
Again, it was a one-score game.
There's a whole lot of what-ifs you could say about this team, and the only thing I know is I think this team's still better than the New York Jets, who are also not that good. I'm going to take the Patriots at home. It's very much against everything I believe in. But if this is going to be it with Belichick, I don't want to go out losing to the Jets, and that's worth giving up whatever the potential pick is, because I know this Belichick thing is going to come to an end at some point. I don't want it to, but if there's any chance of it starting now, I don't want to go out in a loss. So that's my take. I'll take the Patriots. Who you got?
I am also going with the Patriots. I don't think the Jets are very good. We seem to just be in a whole bunch of games, and this seems like one of them where usually the team is better than us, so they're just able to sneak past us, where I don't think the Jets are. So I think if they continue to make their normal level of mistakes, and we make our normal level of mistakes, that will be just ahead. As well as what's our current streak against the Jets? We beat them, like 18 times in a row or something like that. So I'm just gonna go with the trend. I think Belichick's gonna be back. I don't know. There's a lot of smoke, but I think they're gonna figure things out. And I don't see next year. I think personnel has to change. Player wise, we need to get things working. But I thought our defense was solid majority of the year. We were in a lot of the games. The team hasn't quit, and I just don't see a coach that you could tell me would be there week one next year that I think would give us more success than Bill Belichick would week one next year.
I hope that's the case. I really do. But this is also a game I'm not really looking forward to watching. I guess this is just two bad teams.
Yes.
Moving on.
I don't think it's going to be on Red Zone very much. It's got the, I believe it's the lowest, and this is like the second time this year we have the lowest over-under total since like 2005 or something. So, not a lot of points.
Nothing but defensive touchdowns.
Possibly, yeah.
Next game, Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. I don't know if I'm cursed with Atlanta or if they've put a curse on me, but I'm embracing it and not going with them ever again. So like I'm just on the Derek Carr train. It's a fun, hectic ride that I can't always promise you is going to be smooth, but the guy puts up points and he's going to go out trying to put up points, and I'm just going to be pro that guy versus an Atlanta offense that I just can't figure out. I don't know what Bijan Robinson is doing and not doing. I don't know why Algiers is suddenly having better games and Cordell Patterson's getting. I can't explain the Atlanta offense regardless of the quarterback. The usage is just weird, and I don't want to support it, and I haven't supported it correctly all year. So I'm going to New Orleans. Who you got?
On principle alone, give me the Saints.
Next game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Let's erase everything that Tampa Bay did last week. As I mentioned, the gunslinger and Derek Carr. This was the worst I think I've seen Tampa look all year. I wanted to continue to embrace Mike Evans every week. Underrated guy, blah, blah, blah. But this was an ugly, awful loss. This team has to get a win this week. And I think they have some rare chance of getting in. But they can't. They shouldn't lose to Carolina. Carolina didn't even score last week. And the Buccaneers were really close to not even scoring this past week. But I think they'll be able to just surpass whatever Carolina puts up. I got Tampa. Who you got?
I'm also going with Tampa. Yeah, Panthers aren't very good, and Tampa Bay needs to win to have any shot. So, yeah, even after last week, I think they know backs are against the wall.
All right, next game, two high-scoring teams: the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. Both putting up 30-plus points in a victory the week before. Which one do you have more faith in? I kind of like Fields a little bit more, but Jordan Love. I don't know what's going on in Minnesota, but that those are some points there as well. I guess I'm just more a fan of Justin Fields and Jordan Love, and that's going to be the real decision here. So I'm going with them. Who you got?
I'm going with Green Bay at home. Green Bay just keeps tearing apart the Bears, even though Aaron Rodgers is gone. So I'm going to go with the trend, just like I went with the Patriots, and yeah, give me the Packers.
All right, next game, Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Denver not starting Russell Wilson. That was kind of an announcement made midweek, and it was almost instantly confirmed that he will not be returning at all. Not even just not playing. It's weird. This relationship is over, and I don't know why they traded for him. I can't imagine a bigger disaster and a bigger divorce of a threat of just like, no, you're done now. Like, we're not even going to play this out. We're putting Stidham in now and wrap it up. Not the greatest week by either of these teams offensively. I don't know what the Raiders are doing either. They lost a whole bunch of players. No Josh Jacobs last week. I don't know if he's coming back this week. I guess I just think Stidham's got a little bit more reason to show something out there, and that's the only reason I'm going with Denver. But these are not very good teams. Who you got?
I'm going with the Raiders at home. Yeah, that Russell Wilson, whew, that is rough. It sounded like he got the call midway through saying, hey, if you don't restructure your contract, we are going to bench you, and this relationship is going to be over. Didn't seem like he was too thrilled about it. Do you think he will be a starting quarterback next year, week one?
I think he absolutely would start on over half the teams this season. So unless you're telling me over half the teams this year are going to be able to address and correct that problem, which they're just not going to, they're going to be better off with Russell Wilson. So I'm still saying yes. Dude, there's so many bad quarterbacks out there. I know Wilson didn't necessarily have a threat, but I thought at least the game manager, like numbers-wise, they look decent, and I'd rather at least have a guy that can at least do that versus a guy who just can't. I don't know if it's going to be a Joe Flacco situation, but I just think there's enough offenses that would take this over whatever they had this year. And
would you want him on the Patriots?
Over what we had this year? Yeah, I would. I still would.
No, but like going not. It wouldn't be like a retroactive thing. It'd be if there was an announcement in July that we've signed Russell Wilson to be the quarterback. Would that be something you'd be excited about or something you'd be angry with?
I'd be pretty disappointed. But
Okay.
I was more disappointed this year because we didn't do anything like that. So I suppose in some theory it'd be like, well, look, we got a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It's not great. He wasn't great last year, but the guys we had last year were terrible. So like, there's just no argument around it. It's like either we're staying in the same reign of just not very good quarterbacking, and that's fine. But I'm all for change at this point, and if that's the change, that's fine. Anything but what happened this year. Anything.
Yeah.
Moving on. Next game, Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. Both teams coming off a loss. I mentioned the Arizona trap game last week. I did not have the cuts to actually make the pick of it, but I knew this was a frisky offense. I called that this Kyler Murray is going to be just unstoppable against this Patricia defense that is very much claimed the name of Matt Patricia is in charge of everything on this defense. I'm pretty sure he played all whatever positions on the field there. The blame game is not fun right now. A lot of fingers pointing over there, and I think you have no choice but to actually put a lot of blame on him. But I mean, you should be able to outscore Arizona, even if your defense is that bad. This offense has to get back on track, and this is a terrible loss. They're so lucky that they get the Giants this week, and they can actually stop the bleeding and get back on track. I really hope that they do, because if they don't, oh man, that just the drama going into the playoffs of Philly just blowing a bunch of games here towards the end against a bunch of teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. They've been skating by all year. I think they'll skate by one more week because the Giants just don't have it. I don't even know who's starting for them at quarterback, but it's not good. I'll take Philly, but there's some problems here. There's definitely some leaks that they got to address immediately. Who you got?
Yeah, are they the most panicked 11-5 team? Where what are they 2-4 in their last 6? And yeah, another time Arizona, like you're not supposed to lose to Arizona. You definitely sniff that one out. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles, but I think they can handle the Giants. But this could be a team going into the playoffs that you said like there's gonna be some bad matchups where if they play in the playoffs like they've been playing recently, it doesn't look like an 11-5 team or 12-5 team if they win. So, man, they like a month ago everything was looking good. Hurts gonna win the MVP. They looked like they were cruising. And boy, wheels fell off on that very quickly.
I just want to reiterate that there was we're going to have to ban the tush push. It's too unstoppable. It's like, no, this team's losing games now. They should do the tush push every play now. Like, they just who cares if you think it's cheating? If it's an advantage you have, do that more, because right now you don't have the same advantages you think you had. They're gone. You're not able to stop another team. You just can't. So I would try to extend the possessions. I would try to run the ball more, and I would do like 2 tush pushes a game, like or a drive. Like, I would just kill clock, get first downs, and keep it moving. Like, keep the ball out of the other team's hands. They can't score that. Like, it just, I don't know what else to say. Like, hey, they really got this going for them. It felt like early in the year they were almost being mocked for having a dominant play, and I'm not saying backed off of it, but it felt like the criticism it was starting to add up a little bit. Everyone getting really, really sick of the play because it just works. It's just do it more. All right, moving on.
I don't think it's a play you just use over and over again. It gets you the foot that you need in close yard situations, but I don't think that is going to be sustainable.
More tush push. Just keep doing it. It's my advice. It's slowing.
Okay.
Your defense is. You're not going to be able to correct your defense in a week. All right. The only thing you can do is just try to keep the ball in the offensive hands as much as possible. I think that's more what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. The hot Arizona Cardinals. They're coming off a victory versus Philly over here. I imagine that this is another defense that they're going to be able to put some points on. Seattle hasn't exactly been able to shut anyone down. They gave a bunch of points to Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh, who's not even a potent offense. I think Kyler's going to have another good day again. Give me Arizona. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Seahawks. They have an outside chance. They have to win to have any shot making the playoffs. They need some help from some other teams, but I'll go with the Seahawks. Geno Smith, make it happen.
All right, next game, a very concerning Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. I know they won last week, and I know it wasn't like an almighty win against Cincinnati, but that was a very concerning team. This Chiefs team does not have the threat that they once had. They have no weapons. I'm not scared of this team, and I think the rest of the league is starting to catch up. They are very similar to the Eagles, where they are so fortunate to be facing the Chargers this week because this could look like a real icy finish here. They're just not that great of a team right now. They're in a good position to kind of get some decent seeding right now, but they just haven't proven it all year. I'm really starting to lose faith on them. I don't know where it goes, but I think it'll be good enough to beat the Chargers this week. I don't know what the Chargers throwing out there, but they're just that season needs to end. But
That's what they're throwing out there.
I'm worried about Kansas City. Are you?
Oh yeah. I kept Kelsey this year in fantasy, and he was good for most of the year. But yeah, this past month or so, it's not the reason that I got knocked out of the playoffs. There's a lot of reasons for that, but he was definitely not the all right. He's gonna overdo his projections, and it's not just that's just a fantasy thing. When you score in fantasy, it also counts in the real world, and it has not been there. And the whole team in general just is like you said, they're coming off of a win where the Eagles are coming off of a loss, but this is in Mahomes this year. He didn't have an elite season, so I think some of that was the players he was throwing to and all the drops, and I don't think it was all or really much of his fault. But they're not getting any weapons going into the playoffs. So I'm taking them this week against the Chargers because I don't pick the Chargers. But in the playoffs, they similar, not exactly the same to the Bengals, but coming in this year, all right, Super Bowl favorites. That's our expectations. I think you're gonna have to really lower those down to all right. If we can get a win in the playoffs, that's gonna be good for us.
All right, next game, L.A. Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. Niners 12-4 off a win against Washington. Rams taking care of business against the Giants. There's a hot team in the league. It's the LA Rams. I don't know what the ceiling is, but I think I have a little bit more faith in them actually continuing to get a little bit better week by week here. This isn't that critical of a game for San Francisco, or they still need to win this one?
Both teams, win or lose, are in the playoffs.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to still take the Niners. I think Purdy needs to look good for a couple games and a couple series at minimum of all this. I don't know if they're going to play everyone for the entire half, but I'm sure that there's going to be some effort put in. I also think that these teams don't like each other. These coaches want to beat each other, and despite what that may not actually matter for the regular season and the seeding, I think that's going to matter enough. So I got the Niners. Who you got?
I'm also going with the Niners. I think it's going to be the second straight against each other, so I think it'll be a close game. But I don't think there's going to be much to see here. And it, like we just discussed, it really doesn't matter either way. But I'm just going to give a slight edge to the Niners.
All right, next game, Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. Again, another bailout game for Dallas of just getting lucky that Detroit managed to make even more boneheaded mistakes than they were able to make. Very fortunate that they get to face Washington and just walk into another win here. So I'll take Dallas on the road. Who you got?
Lock it in. Give me Dallas.
All right, next game, last game. The Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. The once feared Miami Dolphins. The once 70-point Miami Dolphins.
Remember that?
Do not look like that team at all. This team doesn't look like they can score 70 points combined the rest of the year, even with some success. I like Buffalo's, I guess, experience a little bit more here, and the fact that I've seen them do it. It hasn't always been the most reliable, but I don't think there's any consistency going on in Miami. I'm worried about a lot of things over there. I think they should be very concerned this week. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I just think that they're far more fearful and far more of a threat than what Miami once was. And maybe I'll be wrong. I sure would love to see some of that Miami Dolphins wake back up, although you mentioned some fantasy woes. I think that had a lot to do with a lot of people's fantasy woes this past couple weeks was Miami just not scoring 70 points every week and then having some injuries everywhere. You know, whether it was Mostert one week, Achane the week before, and then they kind of swapped and they screwed everyone, I feel like. So I don't know what you're doing in Miami, but this is going to be a rough ending of the year here. I got Buffalo. Who you got?
I'm also going with Buffalo. Dolphins are locked into the playoffs. Bills, if they win, they're in. If they lose, only 65% chance of getting in. So I just think they're gonna be locked in. They know they've messed up earlier in the year. They've just booted some games to some very not good teams, but I think now they know. All right, all we gotta do is win this, and I think they'll just gonna be more motivated than the Dolphins. I think any of the Dolphins players that are kind of on the fence, being healthy, they'll just say, "Hey, just rest, get ready for the playoffs," and that'll be to the Bills' advantage.
All right, last little reminder. I don't think it's going to have much of a difference on our picks here, but the points total is going to be the Browns-Bengals game. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, that was weird. You know why they did that?
I don't. Was it flexed again? Was that originally going to be the last game, and they just moved Miami,
Maybe.
Buffalo? I don't know. That's the best I could come up with. I didn't see.
Yeah, I happened to notice it.
I didn't see anyone else doing it, but ever since that one week you mentioned that they flexed it, and I think they changed that game. I have been starting to pay attention more. It's like, oh no, I think this point total will be very different than what I thought it'd be in Buffalo and Miami.
Yeah, in Miami as well. So no chance of a snowstorm or anything.
Yeah. All right. So fantasy season's over. We talked about my successes. How about you talk about some of the players' success of the fantasy heroes and zeros of their championship week?
Championship week for the zeros, we have at wide receiver Chris Olave and T. Higgins, and then at running back James Cook, Jahmyr Gibbs, who last week was a hero, this week is zero. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Austin Eckler. A lot of big names there. For the heroes, we have Lamar Jackson. For wide receivers, we have CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams. And at running back, Isaiah Pacheco, Breece Hall, James Conner, Jerome Ford, Najee Harris, and a lone defense, the Bills defense. Fantasy hero.
Who did I have? I had Lamar. I had Lamb in all of the leagues. So I'm starting the week off. I'm already 40 points up. Like it's the best scenario ever. I was so much more calming. So much more calming knowing going into the week. There's like, all right, at least one of my guys showed up big. And then Breece Hall the last couple weeks has just turned on and has been a fantasy
back-to-back
machine.
fantasy heroes.
Back-to-back. So that was
just what you're looking for in the playoffs.
He's going to go on a separate list. All right, I'll tell you that. There's a gratefulness of someone who is taking care of business and is very rewarding on an offense that was not so far rewarding to him. So congratulations to them, and I appreciate it. And that's it for the year, right? That's it for fantasy heroes and zeros.
Yep.
Is there any standout ones for the year? I mean, I mentioned my Gabe Davis disappointment, but is there any other names you'd like to vent out right now before we wrap up the fantasy season?
No one to really vent out, but I think it should be noted that you asked me a couple of years ago for fantasy football advice, and then kind of made a running joke of it that I told you to draft Christian McCaffrey, and then you had Christian McCaffrey lead your team to a championship. So I mean, you took my advice and you ended up with a championship. I think that should be pointed out.
He was hardly my best player the last 2 weeks. Hardly.
Hey, he was fantasy zero this week, and it's just tough for him. I think he was projected for 23 and change and had 13, something like that, where anybody else gets you double digits, and you're usually you can't be too upset. But with Christian McCaffrey, the expectations are just a little bit higher.
All right, well that's it for fantasy. I'm taking my victory and I'm going home. We gotta wrap up a couple of things with some college basketball and a little NBA talk right now. All I know is college basketball, I feel like, did a college football thing where there's just a break, like you said, for the past week. So there's been not as much drama, not as much news. I know Michigan State has got Illinois on the schedule this Thursday. And then Illinois, who do they play? They play another ranked team, I think, later in the week, too. So they got a full week. And I'm saying they're in trouble, or Michigan State's coming. Right? I don't know what sort of Christmas miracle is going to happen here, but I think we bought a bunch of shooters over the offseason here. So this is what I'm hoping to. Right? We're going to turn the season around. We're going to get an offense. It's going to start on Thursday. We're going to take care of business at Illinois, and we'll see where it goes from there. But what college teams did you want to touch on this week?
You mentioned it. Non-conference pretty much over. There's a couple sprinkled in here and there. We're getting into conference play. Anytime conference play starts, it's coaches going against each other that know each other, could have been going against each other for quite a long time, and just weird things can happen. Earlier this week, Stanford upset Arizona. that one wasn't even on my radar. Normally going into the day, I have, a list and, kind of keep an eye on things. That was one that just completely missed it till it was all the way over. Very surprising. But you mentioned definitely there was a lull, but conferences are starting. We're going to start to get big Saturday games now that there's no more football to compete with. So for this week, Friday, UConn at Butler. UConn has lost both of their first two away games. This is their first conference, or their second conference away game. They lost to Seton Hall at the end of December. So it'd be interesting to see if they're able to right the ship. Playing on the road is hard. And then on Saturday, starting off the day, these are kind of starting at the same time, unfortunately, but figure it out. UNC at Clemson and Kentucky at Florida. Then later in the day, we're going to have Iowa State at Oklahoma. So definitely you're going to start, like I said, non-conference is over, getting into conference. There's going to be no more college football. You want to start getting ready for March. Got to get this into your regular rotation, start watching some more of these college basketball teams, start to figure out who you like.
Friday, Illinois is going to be playing Purdue after the UConn Butler game. So I'm going transitive property here. Michigan State is going to beat Illinois on Thursday, and then the next day Illinois is going to wake up and they're going to whoop on Purdue. And I'm going to come into the next podcast being transitive property here. All right, Michigan State, we're back.
That can't be right. Back to back?
I don't think that's right.
Yeah, that can't be right. Maybe you guys are playing tomorrow.
Maybe it's Tuesday. Is it today? Maybe it's today. I don't know.
Today's Tuesday.
Yeah, but maybe the game's today is what I'm saying. Well, we got to get out of here. Let's just talk NBA, all right? I don't know anything about this college stuff. Wake me up when March happens and the next bet has to be addressed, and we already got to start thinking about that.
You play Illinois next week.
Even better. So they're gonna be Purdue this Friday, and then next week we're gonna beat them.
It's just the reverse of what you said.
It's fine. There was an NBA trade. Did you hear about it?
I heard rumors. I heard rumors. There's very rarely trades in December, so it was caught me off guard. I think I was traveling.
I think it's one of the most hypothetical talked about trades of the last 2 years was the OG Anunoby and the kind of drastic trade value that he'd had and just was untradeable for a little bit there. They wanted so much. I actually kind of like what they got. I kind of like the move for both teams. I just, the pressure to Tua, I think, is a little bit more of a big deal for the Knicks. I think getting them, he's a little undersized, but I think it gives them a little bit of help at trying to fill that Mitchell Robinson spot while he's still injured. And I think this is a good move for RJ and Quickly. I think they're going to get more opportunity there in Toronto. Toronto's just got to start making some changes because whatever they've been doing, it just doesn't work. I like Scotty Barnes, but this combination of all these guys, it just isn't working. You have all these guys that are supposedly going to be able to play a lot of defense, and they play no defense. So I think OG going to New York is going to be just kind of the 3-and-D guy that they need, and he's just going to – honestly, he's going to be the Randall replacement of whenever they move on from him. He's just a better 3-and-D option than whatever headache Randall's bringing to the table. So I view it more of him being able to inevitably replace Randall's shoes a lot more than playing along with him. But that's future Knicks talk. That's who knows where that's going to go. I have no idea what you do with Randall or what other team would even want him. But overall, I think this is a good trade for both sides. I mean, do you really have a beef with either move?
No, not really. I mean, the Raptors are out of the playoffs right now, and the Knicks are in the play-in. So it just seems like it doesn't really move the needle on. I'm going to call it like the big players in the league. Hoping that RJ, I don't know if going back to Canada if that helps him out at all. Going back home, but I just don't know if I think I mostly agreed with what you said where RJ and Randall are both too streaky. And so when they're both off and that OG can just be a little more consistent and that you might be able to build off of that. But, anything that can help Brunson out and just all the things that I'm hearing is that this was just the first move for the bigger move that's coming later. And if that means DeJounte Murray or if that's somebody else, I'll be interested to see if this is just part one of a 2-part or a 3-part move. But for right now, it's a interesting. If it's December, if this was at the deadline, I think this would be down the list of the trades we would talk about.
I guess I just like that they added a guy that isn't going to take the ball out of Brunson's hands. Unfortunately, RJ at his best and quickly at their best is with the ball in their hands. They're not that helpful off ball. So I like that they made a move for a guy that doesn't take the ball out of Brunson's hands, because I think that's one of the best advantages they have is his decision-making at the end of the game and his scoring abilities. I don't think this team's suddenly going to be improved by adding Donovan Mitchell or DeJounte Murray or someone else where it's like, oh, well, we already have one of the better options at the end of the game in Brunson. How about if we had someone else just take the ball out of his hands?
Yeah, let's just double up with it.
So, I don't see – those are classic Knicks moves that we have mocked that they don't really make anymore. This team has been organized. They have been an actual organization, and they have had somewhat of a future and a culture thing that has been pretty good over the last couple of years. So I like this move, and I don't think they should fall into the trap of trading for the guys I just said. Like Zach LaVine doesn't make this team better. Like they don't need to fall into that trap. I like the Precious idea. I think that was a good sneak in add on to this trade as well. So
especially with no it looking like Mitchell Robinson might not play again this year.
That stinks, because that's really what they needed. And if Mitchell's out there with OG, the defense on this team under certain lineups, even with Brunson being undersized, I think is very, very capable. And I also like the move that if you look at the futures of the teams you're going to be playing, and that Boston team, they got a whole bunch of guys you could throw OG at, and you need guys like that because they're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I love the move. I guess I'm just pro move for both teams here. So not the only news this week was the trade. The Detroit Pistons kind of benefited from this trade as well. The day of the trade, Toronto played the Pistons, and that really played out where they were short a couple players because they weren't able to add RJ and quickly, I think, in time for this game. And Detroit was able to take advantage of it. After a ruthless overtime game against the Boston Celtics, they finally get a victory. It does not go past, what is it, 28, 29? I don't even know where it stopped. But it's over.
I mentioned it on the podcast last week. I said Celtics are playing at home. We've been on the road. We played really well on the road, but the Pistons are coming in, and I want to flag it. I want to alert people. I threw out a red alert, and nobody listened. And we went down by 22 points in the first half, and I think we're down 18 at the half. But I didn't panic. I made sure to get you, make sure you were aware of it, because it was an all hands on deck situation, and you were able to get the game on. And yeah, we I think like within 7 minutes took the lead, and I thought, all right, we're just gonna cruise right past them. But no, it was an absolute dogfight, and really could have gone either way down the stretch, and we were able to pull it out in overtime. So yeah, they didn't mess around with us.
I had company in town, so it was very much of like, all right, well, I'm not going to prioritize Celtics Pistons today. Like that's going to fall
17 or whatever point favorite.
It's going to fall to the back burner. Even my multi-screen setup at home, that's not even going to make the side screen. It's fine, and it was okay. And then we were down, and then it was kind of like, all right, well, let's watch this, because one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be a big deal that Detroit won, or it's going to be a big deal that Detroit lost again. And it was very, very. I was correct. It was very deserving. It was worth it of an ending. Mm-hmm. Goes into overtime. Bogdanovich had an incredible game. I thought he came out as a killer in overtime, and it was really a well fought victory for the Boston Celtics. And I don't know what trade value any of the guys have there, but I imagine winning is going to help encourage whatever they need to happen over there, because they got to do something, right? They can't hold on to this team the rest of the time. I think they have to make a move. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's a move that they've already made the last couple of years where they take a shot at, like they could trade for RJ essentially. Like they've already done that. The struggling draft pick that just needs a new team, and maybe that the new scenery is just enough to wake them up. But Detroit's in a bad spot. That team's got problems.
It's just nice. It's just nice, you had the record, and you will have the record for quite a long time, but you at least get one win. And now, of course, shortly after, they lost again. But you're on a 1-game losing streak rather than on a 28-game win streak. Now the Hornets, they have the worst losing streak at 11 games. But you mentioned the Celtics. Celtics haven't lost since we last potted, so they are still cruising. They're at OKC tonight. So going against Shea and Chet, that is going to be tough. That is going to be a unique matchup. And so that'll be a good one to watch tonight.
4-game win streak for the Thunder. They're second in the West. They're a game and a half back on Minnesota, and they're tied with the Denver Nuggets right now, which I believe they hold the tiebreaker. It looks like so. A lot of NBA stuff. I can't believe the Clippers are successful, like kind of inarguably. Like I like what they got going on.
They've really turned stuff around.
And the Pelicans, I know they've won the last couple of games, but I am
buying all the Pelican stock and all the Zion stock you want to sell me.
I couldn't sell you anymore. I'm out. Like I'm
taking it.
I'm willing to sell the word from my vocabulary. Like that's how much I'm willing to sell on them. You have everything. I'll never say the word Pelican again. I'll just remove it. I'll come up with like Big Bird or something else. I'll call it something else. Like I will eliminate this team is what I'm saying. I don't want anything to do with them. There's a move that could be made for that team, and maybe I'll re-entertain it. But the way the roster is currently constructed, I'm so out on this team. So go ahead, buy it all up because I want no part of it.
Grand Theft Alvarado got LeBron James. Put that in the trophy case. Put that right in the Hall of Fame.
It's more of just a show that everybody's human, right? He could do that. Even LeBron is going to get tricked by that. It's
caught napping. Love it.
It's really effective. Like he really bends down. He really gets out of the way. He blends in on the sideline of the bench. Do
you think they're going to make a rule to prevent that?
I don't think enough guys can successfully do it so that the rule would ever really need to be enforced. But if other teams started doing this, or if there was other players capable of doing it, I actually think it would be better to not do it. But it's so infrequent, and it's also kind of like just his thing that I don't mind it. It doesn't seem to be like that much. It's not a tush-push advantage. It's not ruining critical moments that just seem like no other team's capable of doing this. Like any other team could do this. They just aren't going to be able to do it. They don't have a guy as small who's as fast and as you got to have good judgment on it. Right? This is like a wild animal hunting out there, right? You got to start off slow and then you got to attack quick and it's a straight line. You know, there's no turns.
I think there's also I don't know what like the word for it is, but like a commitment to the bit where it's, you know, a star isn't going to do this because, you know, it's an embarrassing. It's a grift. It's like, you know, the cornet contest. It's like he's fine with doing it and being a little bit goofy, but he thinks, you know, that it helps for this. Like he thinks that, you know, that it helps. And every once in a while you catch somebody napping, but there's going to be other times where the guys don't fall for it and maybe you look a little bit silly. So you have to be willing to commit to it.
It can happen to anyone. I kind of like that. It's an everyman issue. It's just can happen to anyone. All right, let's get out of here. Is there any New Year's stuff you wanted to share with the people? Anything we got to tell them?
No, I just got some 2 NBA games I think people should be looking out for tomorrow. Bucks at Pacers. Last time they played was Giannis basketball gate. So interested to see both those teams didn't seem very happy with each other. That was after playing the in-season tournament game against each other. So I think that it might be a wild game. And then the next one is Clippers at Lakers on Sunday. And like you said, the Clippers are starting to really put things together, and the Lakers still haven't. So interesting. It's technically a Lakers home game, but those are kind of two of the premier games I put on people's radars for this week.
And I don't know what Clippers injury is just going to ruin all this momentum. I don't know what something's going to happen. I just can't imagine this consistency just going on any farther. But it's here to it's happening. It's working, and it's something to keep an eye on. All right.
Last thing. Did you see the Pop-Tart Bowl?
No. What sport was that? That was college? That has bowl game? All right.
That was a bowl game, and Pop-Tart was the sponsor, and it was a month ago it came out that they were going to have a Pop-Tart mascot as well as that the trophy would be edible. And it was like premium summer content for us, but, you know, it's basketball and football, so, you know, I don't even know if I've even thought I wanted to bring it up. It's like, what are we going to do with this? But, oh, yes, they definitely did. The actual trophy had 2 slots, like little toaster slots for a Pop-Tart. It's like, really? That was your whole thing, that it was edible? It just, you put two Pop-Tarts in it? But, oh, no, there was a whole theatrical situation after the game where they brought a toaster of huge toaster-looking thing out to the middle of the field, and the toaster mascot went down into the top like he was getting toasted and ritually sacrificed. And then on the side, it opened up, and there was a massive Pop-Tart that came out that the coach pulled off a piece, then he was throwing it to his players, then all the players went in and ate some. On the broadcast, one announcer had eaten a lot of Pop-Tarts, one announcer had never had one, so he tried one for the first time. My expectation is next year there are going to be a lot of weird mascots, a lot of weird brands tying themselves in. It was it was very interesting. I think it's going to go overboard next year, but for this year it was pretty fun.
All right, Pop-Tarts. Can you eat them cold, or do they have to be toasted?
It depends on the flavor.
Really? All right.
Yep.
Do you have a cold and a hot example, or we're going to leave it at that?
Strawberry and s'mores are those ones are probably the better ones, untoasted. But for toasted, like cinnamon brown sugar one, needs to be toasted.
Wow. All right. Would a trophy size of this like cure any like, is that a fix you would be interested in?
It is a lot of sugar. It's a lot, but I can see it as as an excitement of, all right, well, we won, and you're in college, so you're underage, so it's not like you're popping champagne or beers. It's just, all right, cool, we get to eat it like as much Pop-Tarts as we want because the season's over.
All right, well, celebrate with the Pop-Tart. We're gonna celebrate next Tuesday a college championship of some form, and we'll be back with a whole bunch of Celtics news. Thank you for liking and subscribe. Little of Column A, Little of Column B, and you can reach Zach on his Twitter, which is
Wicked Z-Man 24.
We'll be back next week.
Little Column A, Little Column B.